Welcome to Charts Today Energy. My name is David Linton, and today's edition for Wednesday, the 7th of November, comes to you from Vienna. I'm here speaking at the European Utility Week conference. And we'll start by looking at the energy mix. Brent crude still depressed, which is driving a lot of things lower, although we are seeing gas and power prices higher this morning. Looking just at the macro situation, US midterm elections went much as expected, really. Democrats made some gains and the Republicans consolidated their position in the Senate. So we're seeing the dollar just weaker on that uncertainty, which is meaning that the euro is stronger, although the dollar is holding its bullish position just against the Japanese yen, and sterling is up pretty sharply against the dollar and against the euro as well. We're seeing sterling looking stronger and against the Swiss franc as well. Markets were up yesterday in the US on the back of those elections, so we saw stock markets looking a little bit better. Weaker in Europe and Asia this morning, so we are just seeing that filtering through, and gold just up about 1/3%, so still a proxy for uncertainty, and bond yields still just sitting really where they are. Looking at Brent crude, we see that Brent fell quite heavily this morning and then just recovering slightly, but downside targets now 69.30, 70.40 on the short-term chart. This $70 level on Brent crude is now looking fairly inevitable. And we're pretty close to that now at 71.80 this morning. And looking at WTI, we see here just pushing lower, multiple downside targets here as well, around the $60 mark. So that spread at $10 is just staying fairly consistent. We're seeing this sell-offs in the morning, then a slight recovery, but generally speaking, we're seeing quite a lot of weakness here. Correlation with the dollar on the short-term chart fairly high, as we might expect. US NatGas actually holding its gains, $3.52 at the moment. So we are seeing that we're off about 1.5% at the moment, to open lower, but really holding on to this 350 level without really pulling back very significantly. We've got a target to 347 on the 1-minute chart, but actually looking pretty bullish. Looking at heating oil, following crude much the same way, lots of downside targets there, and RBOB also lower, with downside targets recovering a little bit. Coal prices went below $90 yesterday, so we are still in this downtrend. We see this on the 1-minute chart. We just see the last few days we've really just dived on coal, down some $4 or $5, and we are just still holding on to the long-term trends. We still have long-term targets, but we've got this downside target, $84, 88 was the target on the 0.5% chart, and in fact that was given back in the sort of low 90s, so that's where we're headed at the moment. No real clear downside targets from here. 87.50 maybe might be met. So coal looking short-term bearish and no real signs of recovery, just the 1-minute chart looking a little bit better this morning. Looking at emissions, emissions actually starting to head into bullish territory. Very interesting on this chart. This is the 60-minute Ichimoku chart. Here we're seeing the correlation with crude oil is negative, so falling crude not having much of an impact there. So the emissions actually just entering bullish territory for the first time in probably a good 3 or 4 weeks. So we are just seeing that looking a little bit better. We've got an upside target. We've got upside targets here on the 60-minute chart of 1801, 1865. We're sitting at 1785 at the moment. And on the very short term, if you're trading emissions, the 1-minute chart is essential. Here we see the 1-minute chart. We've got a target of 1873, but we need to break 18 to push to that level. So be very interesting to see us do that. NBP prices up about 1.6% this morning. So we are just seeing that jump climbing higher. We pushed a little bit higher yesterday. We've got an upside target of 67.70. We are still just in bearish territory on the short-term chart, but medium and long-term we're just holding on to the gain. So seeing a little bit of a recovery there in the price, but not many targets to the upside. The longer-term target, 74, we'd have to move above 68.50 to activate that, so we've got work to do. Looking at TTF this morning, up 1.7%, again jumping at the open, so looking quite positive there. We've got upside targets on the 1-minute chart of 24.33. That was given yesterday, and that's where we are now. So given and met, that's bullish, but no new targets. Notice how all these downside targets were met on the 1 minute chart as well. Taking a look at German gas, we're still trending lower here with multiple downside targets. This is the 1 minute chart as well. Remember, this data is coming to you from Thomson Reuters Icon. If you're using Trayport into Updata, you might well have better targets with higher liquidity on the screen. 22.73, 22.80 is the target there. 5% downside still very possible on German gas NCG. Looking at Italian gas, lower here, 23.50, 6%. And 22.25, 11% lower. So we've got, again, multiple downside targets. German power this morning is up 1.75%, and we're seeing here just nudging higher, so that's looking quite good. We've got 2% upside target there, but it's the 1 minute targets again. Lots of 1 minute targets. Notice this is clustering: 50 euros 30, 50 20, 50.1, 49.70 has been met, and 50.1. So we're getting near those targets. Those targets were all in place for a rise in German power, so they were given 2nd of November. All this week, really, we've seen these targets being given as early as Friday, so we are following those. Taking a look at Nordic power this morning, just pushing higher as well, up 2%. We did have quite an interesting picture here, just sinking lower and then recovering, and we see these multiple downside targets are still hanging over us, but we are pushing at the moment for the 39.15 and 43.10. So we are seeing a little bit of a recovery there, and just taking a look at Czech power. It was lower yesterday, and Polish power actually is up 0.5% this morning, so just pushing a little bit higher, but not. We're seeing Italian power sinking lower, and Spanish power, but of course it's the German power price that's driving things at the moment, and that's up today. So we're seeing gas and power bucking the trend against crude oil for today. That's it for today. Until tomorrow in Vienna, happy charting. See you then.